The Nazis cracked almost every Allied code, the Japanese broke most of the rest, but there was one code they never cracked. Not once. Not even close. And it was built on a language most Americans didn't even know existed. Here's what they never told you about the Navajo Code Talkers and the secret language that changed the war. World War II was chaos. Countries were spying on each other, intercepting every message they could, trying to stay one step ahead. And in that mess, the US faced a massive problem. Every time they sent a message, the enemy was listening. They needed something unbreakable, something fast, something no one else on the planet could figure out. So where did they turn? Not to machines, not to elite cryptographers, but to a group of young Navajo men, many still teenagers, who spoke a language so rare and complex it became America's deadliest weapon. But this wasn't just a cool wartime trick, it was survival. And it came at a cost most people never hear about. Let's go back to the start. By the early 1940s, the US military had a serious weakness. Its codes sucked. They were either too slow, too easy to break, or both. Radio messages sent between troops had to be encrypted, then decrypted, which took hours, and by then, the situation on the ground had already changed. Worse, the Japanese code breakers were good, like freakishly good. They cracked American codes left and right, especially in the Pacific. And in war, one cracked message could mean thousands dead. So the US was stuck. They needed a code that was fast, simple, and absolutely uncrackable. That's when someone had a crazy idea. What if the code wasn't a code at all? What if it was a language, one so rare and complicated even the best enemy cryptographers couldn't touch it? Enter the Navajo language. First of all, let's get one thing straight. Navajo isn't just a hard language, it's one of the most complex and unique languages on Earth. Here's why. It has tons of sounds not found in English. It's tonal, meaning the pitch of a word can completely change its meaning. There's no alphabet, it's all oral, no textbooks. And it's only spoken by Navajo people. Back then, that meant a very small number of people. During World War I, the US had tested something similar with the Choctaw language. It worked well, but Navajo took things to the next level. In fact, in 1942, Philip Johnston, a white man who had grown up on a Navajo reservation as the son of a missionary, came forward with a pitch. He said, "I think Navajo could be used to create a code that no enemy could crack." The Marine Corps was skeptical, but they agreed to test it. So Johnston brought in 4 Navajo men to do a little demo. The Marines gave them an English message. The Navajo guys translated it into their language, spoke it over the radio to each other, and translated it back, flawlessly, in under 30 seconds. The Marines were stunned. That's when the plan went full speed. Now it was time to build something serious. The military recruited 29 Navajo men, all fluent in both English and Navajo, and gave them a top-secret mission: create a military code using your language and make it unbreakable. These guys weren't trained cryptographers, they were sheep herders, farmers, kids who had just graduated high school, but they were smart, really smart. They came up with a genius system, code words based on Navajo terms. For example, submarine became Beshlo, literally ironfish. Bomb became a Yishi, which meant eggs. Fighter plane was Dahi-Tihai, hummingbird. They even made an alphabet system using Navajo words to stand in for letters. A might be ant in Navajo, B could be bear, and so on. The result? A code that sounded like normal Navajo conversation but wasn't. It was a code within a language, layered, fast, and no one could make sense of it. The first code talkers were trained like any other Marine, which meant hell. They got screamed at, pushed to the limit, and treated like any other recruit. But they also faced racism, even from inside their own unit. Most white Marines had never even seen a Native American before. Some thought the Navajo guys were weird, some didn't trust them at all. And remember, Navajo people had been oppressed by the US government for decades. They had been forced into boarding schools where speaking their language was literally beaten out of them. Now, suddenly, that same language was being hailed as a national treasure. The irony wasn't lost on them. Once trained, the code talkers were deployed, fast. They went straight into the Pacific Theater, where the US was locked in brutal battles with Japanese forces across islands like Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Conditions were hellish: mud, rain, heat, disease, constant artillery, death everywhere. And in the middle of it all, the code talkers carried one job: communicate orders in Navajo. They'd sit in foxholes under fire and send rapid messages across the battlefield using hand radios, all in the code they'd created. And guess what? It worked flawlessly. A regular encryption message took 30 minutes to encode and decode. A code talker could send the same message in 20 seconds. That meant surprise attacks worked, defense positions held, reinforcements arrived in time. They saved lives, thousands of lives. The Japanese tried everything. They tapped the radio signals. They listened. They analyzed. They even captured a few Navajo soldiers. But none of them were code talkers. They brought in linguists from all over. Nothing worked. The code remained unbroken from the start of its use in 1942 until the end of the war in 1945. We couldn't even begin to understand it. That's how airtight it was. So here's the twist. After the war, the code talkers were told to shut up. Seriously, their work was classified. They couldn't tell anyone what they did. Not their families, not their friends, nothing. They went home quietly. Some got jobs, some went back to the reservation, some struggled with trauma, some were forgotten completely. They got no medals, no honors, no credit, not for decades. It wasn't until the 1960s and 70s that their story even began to come out. And not until 2001, more than 50 years later, that the US government formally recognized their heroism. President George W. Bush awarded the Congressional Gold Medal to the original 29. Many of them had already passed away. Here's the part that hits hardest. These men risked their lives for a country that had tried to erase their identity. They used a language they had been punished for speaking, and that language saved lives. It's one of the greatest ironies in American history. The very culture that was marginalized became its strongest shield. The Navajo Code. Talkers didn't just help win battles, they proved something way bigger. That even in a world at war, even in the ugliest moments, language, identity, and culture have power. And when respected, they can literally save the world. Today, many of the original code talkers are gone. But their legacy isn't just about a war, it's about resilience. It's about pride. It's about the idea that the things people try to silence are often the things most worth listening to. If you enjoy our journey, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you like our content and want to support me, you are welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box.